Hey, class. Hope you're doing well today. This is day 2 of our chapter 1 and 2. So we left off with what restriction you would have on your license if you have to wear your contacts or glasses while driving. We talked about a restriction B. I'm going to talk about the rest of the slides here, and then at the end go over things that are on your outline that are not on this presentation. So first off, with a teacher, you have to drive a minimum of 6 hours. We talked about this briefly in the first couple of slides of the presentation, but you have to have 6 hours. We talked about either the 16 days during the school year or the 6 hours, which would be 6 sessions during the summer, which you're talking six sessions. So you get the permit, apply for your permit. Who can you drive with? You can drive with an adult. That is at least there's 3 things that you have to be thinking about here. So an adult could be your mother, your father, as long as they've had a license for at least 1 year. And if you have a brother or sister that your parents approve of and they've had a license for at least 1 year, they have to be 21 years of age. You can drive with brother or sister. So you can drive with aunt, uncle. Maybe you have an older cousin or a grandma or a grandpa that is obviously at least 21. They're a lot older than that, but the big thing is have your parents' approval or permission. Of course, it could be if parents aren't in the picture, it could be a guardian, or if your grandparents are your guardian as well. So a couple things about your permit. I know we're a ways away from getting them hopefully sooner than later, but drive with somebody you're comfortable with. So if mom kind of makes you panicky and dad makes you calm, then drive with dad. Or if grandma's the best choice, try to pick somebody you're going to be calm and they're going to be patient with you. A lot of patience. So you have to get a minimum of 50 hours, and you have to get 10 of those 50 must be nighttime driving hours. This is all with your permit. So with the permit, there's on your outline, you can apply for a permit at age 15, 16, or 17, obviously after you've taken your course. So driving test. You just got done with behind the wheel, and you got an A or B in the classroom, and you're going to take the driving test on the very last day of behind the wheel. You're going to have to do a few things. So obviously you got to start the vehicle. If you can't start the vehicle, put you on a wait list. Get you strong enough to start that vehicle. As just joking aside, that's never really been an issue. Unless you try to start the vehicle without your foot on the brake, that tends to be an issue. So foot on the brake, start the vehicle. You have to complete a turnabout. What's the definition of a turnabout? It's turning the car around. There's multiple ways you can do this. A 3-point turnabout, an alley or a driveway turnabout, or a reverse turnabout. What's on the test is what we call an alley turnabout. It's like turning into a driveway, but we use an alley, neutral area, where you have to turn in and back up into the correct lane, and off you go. You will have to back not necessarily on the back 50 feet during the, I think it's like day 3 or 4 of behind the wheel, but that's not on the actually 15 to 20-minute test that you'll take with us. You have to park uphill and downhill with a curb. You have to be able to control your vehicle on 4 right turns and 4 left turns, 2 at stoplights, and 2 without. So those are just the things that are on the test. But the test itself, you're talking 15, maybe 20 minutes, and you will be done. What else? With the test, the scoring we'll go over here in the next slide. So points. Think about the game of golf. So the lower the score, the better. So a 0 is considered a perfect grade on your driving test. And what we'll give you is, let's say if you have a turn that's a little bit too fast, a little bit too quick, you didn't use a turn signal, you could score 4 all the way up to 8 points. So that has to be your cumulative score has to be under 35. I would say average score could be anywhere from a 4 to a 6 to an 8, all the way up to a 12 or a 15. Of course, we have outliers that are a little bit that students that get a little bit higher points or lower points. Very rarely do we give a 0 on the test because we don't want you leaving behind the wheel thinking you are a perfect driver. We can always get better each and every day. I can get better. Mr. Lane, Mr. Martin, Mr. Jenke can get better in their driving as well. It's a lifelong journey. Lack of cooperation, never had it on my end, at least speaking, where if I tell you to go right and you say, you know what, I don't want to go right, I'm going to go left. That would obviously be lack of cooperation. We don't have that. Accident and it's your fault. If you pull out in front of somebody and it's your fault, then it would be automatic. If this is the one where we have if people that fail the test, we don't like going over this slide. We don't like talking about failure, but this is what happens most of the time if there is a failure. Maybe you're a little anxious, you're nervous, and you fail. You got tunnel vision. You fail to see a stop sign, stoplight. Actually, not as much, but you do not stop at the stop sign. It'll be an automatic failure. We'll go back to school and we'll try it again, maybe even as early as the next day. Aiming for pedestrians or animals, that doesn't happen as well. So that's talking about failure. But one thing that we mentioned earlier is we have your best interest. So if you fail, we fail. So we're right there beside you to get you to become a driver that can pass that driving test. So the blue slip, you physically used to be given a blue slip quite some time ago, and you would take that blue slip to the DMV. Well, what's all this is done, your blue slip is done online. So I'm the wheel teacher. In order for you to get passed, you have to get your 6 hours. You can pass behind the wheel without taking the driving test. You just obviously have to take the driving test at the DMV. So what's going to happen is it takes at least hours for the blue slip to be processed online. So if your birthday is the day that you take the driving test and you say, I'm going to go to the DMV, well, it could take 24 hours for it to be cleared at the DMV. So that your driver's education teacher will be clear with you on that, just to make sure that you are passed and approved into the system. Okay. So what some teachers can do, depends on what type of student you are. If you're a responsible, respectful student, and the driver's education teacher knows that you're going to take the driving test on the same day that you turn 16, and we know that there's an issue, could be with that 24-hour waiting period. They may put you through a day or two earlier, whether we should or not, probably not, but do that in favor to you. That way you can get your license on your birthday. So your teacher will talk to you about that. Right. So you'll make sure you need to know these items that you need to take with you when you get your license. So the first bullet point is your certificate of completion, what we commonly refer to as your waiver. So you get done taking the driving test with us, you're going to have your waiver, which is physical. It's just a sheet of paper. It's got blue ink, and it's what we write on. It's your test, basically your grading sheet, our grading sheet we give to you. It's your test score, and you give the DMV workers your waiver, and it'll get you at the DMV. You have to have your instruction permit with you. You have to have your proof of 50 hours, which need to be in the certified GDL on the GDL log sheet. We'll talk about that at a later date. Social Security card we talked about, certified birth certificate we talked about. You have to have your proof of insurance. We'll talk more about that. And 2 proofs of residency. So a proof of residency is a piece of mail with your name and address on it. Can't use a birthday card from not get you don't get mail that necessarily is considered a proof of residency with the DMV standard. So one, we'll give you your high school transcript that has your name and address on it. It is a certified proof of residency that you can take to the DMV. 2 would be parents can sign what we call an affidavit. So as long as your mom or dad has their license, the DMV worker will look at their license, they fill out the affidavit. My son or daughter lives at this address, they sign it, you're good to go. You can also have, if you have a passport, that would work, a bank statement, utility bill. Obviously, you won't have a utility bill, but you may have your own bank account that you could use there. So all these things you need to take to the DMV with you. I know it's some time from now, but that's just something that you will have to know for the test, and obviously down the road once you get your license. Okay, so cooperative driving program, we the driver education, we work for the Secretary of State. When we give you the test, we're working for them. So we actually had to go through a cooperative driving program ourselves. Our test route, every student will take use the same test route, qualified to give the test. So only using that test route. Of course, only if you get an A or a B in the classroom. We talked about 35 points or lower. One thing I do want to touch on is spot check dates. The DMV will come out with 1 to 2 spot check dates a month. And I don't know if they randomly draw it in the computer or out of a hat or whatever they do. They're going to draw a date. And let's say if your birthday is on March the 17th, and March 17th is March's spot check dates. No matter if you pass the test with us, you have your waiver, you have to retake the test at the DMV. So it's just like a 1 in 30 chance, maybe a 2 in 30 chance that you have to get spot checked at the DMV. It's very unlucky on your part. You may have to very rarely do this. You may have to take the driving test, and you may have to take the written test over. The written and the driving test, that's very, very rare that you do that. In order for you to get your permit, in order to get your license, you have to have parental permission. So if you're at home not doing everything right and you're disrespectful to mom and dad, your grades are low, and mom says, no, I'm not going to sign off for your permit, you don't deserve it, well, you don't get one. So now is really the time to really see what your behavior is like, your grades are like. Are you respectful? Put yourself in a position that you're going to get your permit. Because we've had some situations where mom and dad, they just won't sign the application, and you're not going to get your permit or license down the road. Now, very rarely, but we've seen this happen before, where a student has his or her permit, and mom or dad says, you know what, I don't want you to have your permit anymore, so we can actually revoke your permit once you have it. It's a lengthy process for us, so we choose not to. We'd rather not do that. So don't put yourself in that situation either. Okay, a couple more slides here. Change of driver's licenses. So if you have moved from Panther Creek to Piper Glen, or from to Chatham Knolls, or whatever it may be, or from Springfield to Chatham. If you move addresses, you have 10 days to notify the DMV. How you can notify them? You're going to go in there with your new address, and they're going to change your license for you. Now, if you've gone 30, 40 days and you forgot and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not going to do it because I'm going to get arrested, that's not going to be the case. You can still go and get that done, but you really need to do that within that 10-day period. You have 30 days to notify the DMV of a name change. So, for example, if you get married and your name changes, you have 30 days to notify the DMV of that name change, or if you, whether it be a different situation. 30 days for a name change, 10 days for an address change. Out-of-state license are valid for 90 days. So if you move out of Illinois into Florida, you have 90 days where your Illinois license is valid in Florida, and then you have for you to get that Florida license, or vice versa. If you move from into Illinois, your out-of-state license is valid for 90 days, and you have that amount of time to get that Illinois license. Now, a good time to talk about it. Can you drive with your permit? Let's say if you're going on a vacation this summer, can you drive on your Illinois permit in Ohio, Florida, Atlanta, whatever it may be? Yes, you can. You can treat it like a license, so you can do that. Again, if you lose your license, if you lose your permit, you have $5, certified birth certificate, and social security card. So age restrictions about your license, or we're talking about permits, but let's really focus on getting your driver's license. And we'll talk more about this in chapter 3. But Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 6 a.m., you're not to be on. Your license is no longer valid after 10 p.m. on a Wednesday night or a Thursday night. Friday night, Saturday night, your curfew is 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. So driving at midnight when you're 16 on a Saturday night is no different than you going out and taking mom's car right now and driving when you don't have a license or a permit. Don't be doing that. And you may be thinking, wait a sec here. Some things is what we call common sense. So if you're, for example, I've been a wrestling coach for quite a few years, a soccer coach for quite a few years, and there were times when our wrestling bus left at 5:30 in the morning to get to a tournament, and we had 16-year-olds drive to the bus. Are you breaking curfew? Not necessarily. That's a common sense thing. Get pulled over. A police officer says, what are you doing? Well, I'm going to catch the wrestling bus or the soccer bus or the basketball bus or the show choir bus. Officer will ask you, I'm going to go ahead and call your coach. I'm going to call your parents. And then you should be okay in that circumstance, in that situation. Or if you're out, you just got done working 10 o'clock and you're out driving 10:30, 10:15 on a Thursday night, police officers do the same thing. Call your boss, call your parents to make sure that is the case. Now, if you're coming back from seeing Toy Story 4 or Toy Story 5, if there ever is one, on a Saturday night and it's 11:30 at night and you're just coming from that, you're socializing or you're doing something with your friends, no go there. You'll lose your license for at least 1 year. So you can't be out driving past 11 p.m. or 10 p.m. On weeknights and weekends unless you have a good reason for that. Okay, classifications. Class D license is what you guys are all, and that's saying you're driving a vehicle. You can drive a vehicle that's 16,000 pounds or less. Nothing heavier than that. So your average vehicle is going to be 4,000 or 5,000 pounds. Maybe you get into your SUVs, your big trucks, that may be 7,000, 8,000 pounds. So your vehicle that you're driving is going to be well under 16,000 pounds. So that's the class that you're applying for. Also, you cannot take more than 15 passengers. You may think 15 passengers, there's no way. Okay. And we'll talk about something about passengers here at the end of today's presentation. But you can't not drive. For example, me, well, I do have my bus driver's license, but we have, some of you guys have been on the districts, that white, we call it the activity bus. That is for a Class D license. So I'm going to take, as a coach, I'm going to take 14 passengers, including myself. That's 15 passengers. If I do that, I have to have a CDL. So again, passengers or less. Of course, if you fall in that 16 to 17, you can only have one passenger in the car with you that's not a family member. A Class L or Class M motorcycles license. You're going to have to know this in a little bit more detail than what we have on the PowerPoint. So a Class L is from 50 cc's to 150 cc's. CC is just a measurement of how big an engine is. You hear a 4-cylinder car or a 6-cylinder engine, 8-cylinder, a V6, a V8. It's a bigger engine. So the motorcycle would be a lot smaller for a Class L of 50 to 150 cc's. A Class M is over 150 cc's. Those are your Harley Davidsons. Those are your Kawasaki. Those kind of the high-strung motorcycles, where you're going to be able to drive or be on a motorcycle that's more cc's, more power. Now, you may think, okay, what about those mopeds or scooters that you can rent when you're on vacation? All you do is have to show a license. You have to have a motorcycle's license for that. Well, depending on how big they are. If they're under 50 cc's, which a lot of them are, you don't have to have a Class L or Class M motorcycle's license. All you have to have is a valid driver's license. Sometimes they make you be over the age of 18 or 21. Okay? You need to know that CDL stands for commercial driver's license. And there's many different types of commercial driver's license. There's a passenger endorsement. There's semi-tankers or the bus driver's license. Those are all different types of CDLs. Okay, and that's it. You smile for the camera and you are good to go. So that was the end of Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. A couple things that are on your outline that we did not talk about today or in today's presentation or the day one's presentation is it talks about what is perjury. That's just giving false information to the state. What is perjury? It's giving false information to the state. The consequences of perjury are class 4 felony, $25,000 fine, and could be up to 1 to 3 years of jail time. So perjury, you're using somebody else's license as your own. That's giving false information to the state. What are the consequences of using someone else's license? Talked about $2,500 fine, 1 year in jail. Okay, couple of things there. And there, how long will your license be suspended for perjury? If you're using a different license, it is up to 1 year. Another question, which we'd like to have a guest speaker when we talk about this, is being an organ donor. What do you have to be an organ donor? You sign the back of your license. Okay, so if you have that conversation with mom or dad as well. It's a selfless thing that a lot of you would probably want to do. Okay, signing off. Chapter 1 and 2 are in the books, and we should be good to go. Everybody have a wonderful day and evening, and that is a wrap.